what time it is. It's time for a happy hour with Digifora. Cheers.
Cheers.
We have a guest, our first guest ever on Digifora's Happy Hour podcast. We are so excited to welcome my good friend, Mack Ortis.
Mm-hmm.
And Mack, gosh, we go way back to when I was at Saddleback.
Way back. Surprisingly, it was always at my time at now Meta, like, then Facebook.
You can call it
Meta,
Facebook.
right?
You worked for Facebook,
Yeah, I don't usually.
The book,
I have
used
to
to
connect
say.
the dots sometimes. Some people get confused. Like I've been asked, so I hear, you worked at Facebook, but did you also work at Meta? I'm like, I mean, yes, but
you're like, is this a trick question?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
I met Mack when he was working at Facebook, because it was not called Meta at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Got to visit him up in the Bay Area and get some tours of the campus itself. So if you ever, I guess not anymore, you won't get the opportunity because Mack has moved on.
Yep.
But no one does a good tour like Mack does. He was like a senior level at Facebook because of the time, just even being there. Can you tell us the time average person, employee stays at Facebook?
Yeah, so a lot of things in Silicon Valley, you have to think on a 4-year timetable. That's typically when stocks vest.
Yep.
And so like that applies all the way from like where you're thinking about your career to also like even how you think about discussing comp packages. Like you got to think of that 4-year mentality. It's kind of funny that our entire lives that's kind of ingrained into us. You got like a 4-year high school and stuff like that.
4-year
college.
Move on.
Yep. Yeah.
4 years or less, right? Because it's so competitive.
So 4 years is usually the average like tenure of a Facebook employee. If you're getting into like if you last longer than 4 years, you stay longer than 4 years, it's typically because you've kind of like tapped into something that you really enjoy, and kind of like found your passion project. You feel your like network is there. And so I was there for a total of 7 years.
Yeah. Wow. So you were like the old wise employee. Trusty.
I've seen managers come and go. I've seen directors come and go.
That's awesome.
Can you give us give our audience a peek into like the things that you got to do while you were at the book?
Yeah. Lovingly known as the book.
I remember you told me that and I never forgot.
It's a good one. So I helped manage the Apple and Google ads partnerships. So what that means,
just little clients like Apple and Google.
Yeah, what that means in layman's terms is I worked on the ad campaigns and helped develop the like biz dev strategy for Apple and Google on the platforms of Facebook/Instagram.
Very cool.
At the time. Even simpler is any ad that you saw on Facebook or Instagram from 2015 on. That came from Apple or Google. That was my handiwork. I worked with them directly.
Wow. You are a legend, Mack.
It was a fun, wild ride.
I can only imagine what those conversations were like. Good.
They're very fascinating. They're very like Apple, especially. I had a lot of fun with Apple. Just like a crazy ex fun. Like it was a blast. Yeah. Well, it was fun what lasted. Right. Yeah.
What was the main difference between working with the two? Because they're very different companies.
Apple leads with their heart, whereas Google leads with their head.
I would have thought the opposite. That's interesting.
Yeah. So like, and how that plays out is like, you even see that in this whole like privacy conversation that happened back in 2018, where Apple would, disagree fundamentally with Facebook's point of view on something.
Okay.
From a heart. Like they just were like, we understand that it's industry standard. We understand how you rationalize it, but we just don't feel comfortable with it, period. And like a heart move. And so when you like engage with them, you have to show them the data because like that's important. That helps build the narrative, but you don't lead with the data. You lead with like, this is why we are doing this. Simon Sinek talked about it in his book when he was analyzing Apple about the start with why concept. That's through and through Apple.
I love Simon Sinek.
Yeah. Google, on the other hand, is very data driven. like you still have the narrative. There's still a heart element, data element to both of it.
Sure.
But leans more towards the data analysis side, where they are like, is it true? And they like to challenge assumptions all the time.
Sure.
They're
I bet there's a lot of Enneagram 2s, 3s, and 4s that work for Apple, like the more creative. They're in the heart triad and feelings, and then 5, 6, and 7s, and some 8s. Probably 8s work at both, I bet. But 5, 6, and 7s work a lot at Google, and they're more in the head triad, more thinking. I love the Enneagram, and I'd love to dive into that. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Justin and I got the privilege to go visit some of our clients out in the Bay Area, and we just thought, oh, what's Mack doing? Maybe he wants to come to dinner, like now. And we were very lucky that you did. And we had this great conversation about the current state of digital, of social, and where that's headed. And you had some great insights for us, Mack. And even what is your perspective on, like, you were in it in its heyday, in the space, and like the best time ever, like you were digging gold during the gold rush.
It was a rocket ship. Yeah.
I would say we're probably like post gold rush now. Like, so where do you think the space is headed?
I think the market's starting to mature. Yeah, I think the market's definitely starting to show signs of maturity. I think I think what it is, as a brand, if I'm putting my brand hat on, you have to really start thinking at things at a global lens. I know this isn't what we exactly talked about, but I think you would all agree that the macro trend with a maturing market like this is these global trends. You got to think globally, because like we're seeing a lot of growth in like overseas, like outside the United States. The United States market did go through its heyday 2015, 2016, 2017, where
we all worked in the space. Great times.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. We're just, and not saying that there aren't great times ahead, but just, there were massive amounts of people getting access to not only mobile, but high-speed internet. Like, we had 4G rollout, 5G rollout, like all these improvements to like internet communications infrastructure, which allows, better than ever communications. Like, so it allowed social to proliferate. It allowed Facebook and Instagram to grow, Snapchat as well.
Even just human behavior moved towards sharing so much more of your life. Do you think?
Well, because you were technically capable of doing it. Right. These aren't Twitter days anymore, right? Like, I'm not limited to, because you got to remember, like, Twitter was formulated off of the SMS idea.
That's correct.
It was off of a text message. And that was the limit of its data.
That's right. Because there's an extra physical cost to me sharing.
Exactly. And I think that's, to your point, it's a human thing as well, because you look back to like film, for instance, like film length is always contained by the medium. And so, like, I remember I was just talking about this. We were watching the Cinderella musical from '97 with Brandy in it.
Oh yeah, I just want to promote
that. We were watching it, and we're just like, man, all movies in the '90s were about an hour and a half long. You take a step back, you're like, was that just a trend? Was our attention span shorter then? No, it was the medium. VHS couldn't really do much more past the 145, I think. 150 minutes. And so, technology advances communication all the time.
Then somehow the movie Titanic was 3 hours long. But I think that was two VHSs.
Two VHSs. Yep.
Yeah. See, it was still constrained by the medium.
Make it work.
But
great movie.
So that's why I'm saying we're in a matured market in the United States. Like, everyone has now had time to access mobile first products and high-speed internet. It means the people that were, like, if you think of your diffusion of innovation graph, your standard bell curve, like we're now approaching the mainstream. Have we kind of tipped over into the late majority? Arguably, yes, in certain areas.
Sure.
But who's in the early majority right now and who's rapidly kind of rocketing up? The rest of the world. They're now starting to get access. Like Asia, Africa, LATAM, Middle East. Yeah. Those areas and regions are now starting to get access, especially with, like, we always like to talk about Elon Musk and Starlink, but his technology pioneered that idea, and now, like, T-Mobile's doing satellite internet even in the United States. That kind of technology is out there. I know Facebook worked on what was known as the Aquila program, which was their drone program.
You showed us that original model,
Yeah.
I think, inside, right?
Model that was retired. Yeah. And it was kind of the battle of the internet skies back in 2015. Google
I remember that.
Air balloons and Facebook had drones. But what Facebook ended up doing was they decommissioned that program and then sold and licensed the underlying technology to Boeing to actually build that into their international flights. Because we just realized as a company, or Facebook realized as a company, like we're in the communications business, like we're in social, we're not plane builders, we're not we're not drone engineers.
It's a great thing
to
realize.
prove out the technology and make sure that it makes sense, and now we can just give it off to someone who does planes for a living.
So where are you at now in the space, Mac? You're post Facebook Meta life. You're looking to see what's next, but you also don't want to jump on a sinking ship with other companies in the Bay Area. And so with things moving so quickly in 4-year time span, like you said, maybe even less at this point, where's your next step? Where are you looking to go to? Or where do you think the industry is moving towards?
Where's next? And so like on the one hand, like you can't deny because of like the growth overseas. You can't deny the influence of like TikTok. Like TikTok has a vast majority overseas. I would say it's probably comparable like to like what WhatsApp is like, Facebook's WhatsApp overseas. Like it's just, you don't see as much domestic usage, but internationally it's big. I think we have at least another maybe 4 years of swell, like as those foreign markets kind of like continue to mature. That all depends on obviously social political climates, but like for the most part, like I see that like long-term 4-year, that seems fair.
Do you think TikTok has reached saturation in the US, or they're still climbing up that curve?
They're actually, I think they're I think the best way to think about it is they haven't matured in the United States because they're facing immense headwinds. Like it's just really like they're just facing a very resistant market compared to like everywhere else in the world. And like I don't want to devolve into like whether they share data with China or not. This is just looking through the lens of like what's trending, where are people's eyeballs at, and so then you can play accordingly if you're a brand manager.
Sure. Yeah.
Make your own decisions as a brand manager on brand safety and if that channel's safe enough for you and stuff. But I see TikToks on.
I still am thinking about the length of a movie being like an hour and a half because the medium, the videotape can only hold an hour and a half. And I think about people being the mediums now and only being able to hold like a minute to a minute and a half of information, of content from these platforms like a TikTok. Our attention span is just so short as a society now. And so, gosh, I'm wondering like what the correlation is. Does it go back to longer form content? I know there's always an ebb and flow, but the pendulum has swung so far to like 30 seconds and less.
It's an ebb and flow, just like the economy is an ebb and flow. Like we typically always see like periods of boom and bust over and over, but it always trends up to the right, like in the long term. And you hear financial analysts talk about that. I think it's the same thing with this attention span thing and how it rubber bands. Things fall out of style because people are innately get bored.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. And eventually like scrolling, like eventually your thumb's going to get tired of scrolling too fast and you're going to look for more long form content instead. We'll just bounce between those two. I think
we're all going to get carpal tunnel, like our generation in the social space probably inevitably will have, for sure. I might invest in like some carpal tunnel.
Insurance.
I have some gloves, some copper gloves,
like some new products.
I have copper gloves that are really great. Like they have like a copper weave in it and they're fingerless.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So Mac, what else are you seeing in the space right now in tech country?
I think what we're going to see in the next decade, if not next 5 years, a increase in the metaverse. There's a lot of preconceived notions about it, but like we're talking about the VR virtual reality, MR mixed reality, or AR augmented reality spaces. And you know what we're really talking about when we're talking about the metaverse is this this concept that actually tracks back to a sci-fi book. Like I forget when it came out, but it was like ages ago. I think it was Snowblind, I think was the book title. I'm just like trying to remember this. But the idea behind it was they were describing this world where physical and digital blended together. And so a lot of people reference media like Ready Player One is probably the most common reference that you hear. But then they tend to silo it too much and think of it the meta is just like the Ready Player One or the game World of Warcraft second. Actually a lot broader and bigger than that, because we're talking about a system, a universe that permeates across different brands and different apps. So it's the idea that like it's to a smaller extent, it's what we're already seeing about this idea of controlling your own data and engaging with apps as yourself in a one-on-one relationship where you trust them on housing your data and they respect all of your like decisions on the app.
That's a lot of trust.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot of trust. It's a social contract in a lot of ways.
I remember my first experience with the metaverse was when we visited you and had our summit at Facebook, and we got to try on the goggles.
And it was the idea of messing with a VR church, I believe, right?
Yeah, but I think we just tested it out and we're hanging out in like a living room together. That's
right. Yeah, it was the general like exhibit of it all. Have you seen the video with the latest ones with Mark about just like talking to avatars, like avatar?
Yep.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, they're crazy. You should look that up later. But that's the idea of this like mixed reality space where we're gonna like, it's the same kind of thing that Microsoft's talking about with their HoloLens technology, except inverted. Instead of HoloLens, which is a piece of glass that you can still physically see the world around you, and images are rendered onto the glass and projected onto the glass. That's one aspect of it, one way into it. The other way is what Oculus or Meta is trying to do with the Meta Quest 2 and Meta Quest Pro specifically, which is a screen. So you're completely blinded if the power is off, but it recreates the world around you with cameras.
Yeah, this one gentleman said it was his favorite thing to do on airplanes because he could be on an airplane, but also be like in a full-sized movie theater watching a movie instead of just on his device.
Yeah. Funny enough, our like Oculus's then CTO at the time like said he did exactly that. Like he was like, I always fly with my Oculus Go and watch movies.
I guess it's the least embarrassing space to put it on because you're stuck in your chair anyway. So
yeah, exactly. If anything, like let's be honest, everyone else is kind of jealous. If they're making fun of you, they're probably also jealous because they're wondering what you could possibly be watching, and it's got to be better than what they're seeing.
That's correct.
Yeah, definitely.
Correct.
Do you have any questions, Justin, for Matt?
I mean, it's a fun space to be in, and it's fun to be a part of it. I think the thing that we run into, Mac, is, we're starting to hear more and more people call this Web 3.0, and I think that's officially kind of the title of it. But I think the other thing is I think a whole lot of business owners out there are still trying to figure out Web 2.0. And it's just this funny conversation where it's kind of like, this is the future. And they're still asking questions that the three of us were talking about literally 10 years ago. And so it's just funny how the rubber band analogy, where it's expanding and it's going to pull everybody forward. And that's just I think we're in that season of history. But as you kind of think through the future, do you think the platforms will just start aging stuff out or sunsetting things? Or do you think it will just become a broader scope of opportunity or products, or what does that look like to you?
Well, I'm sure there are other people that are research scientists that can probably give us a more technical, like scientifically thought through answer. But just what I'm seeing trends wise and kind of like the gut check of it all, looking back at technology and how technology has changed, there are certain elements with all technological improvements that are difficult for people who are older to learn.
Yep, absolutely.
It's the old dog, new tricks concept. Though that adage is always taken out of context and always really abused in a lot of ways, because I've seen a lot of old people like learn technology. It's really a mindset.
I mean, they're in the Apple store every day.
Yeah. Don't be discouraged. You can still like hang with everyone. But
see them in the wild in any Apple store near you.
But what I think is the technological shift. Like one of the technological shifts we saw was the shift to like mobile. Like everyone shifted to mobile, and there was a certain pocket of the generation which they were like begrudgingly did it, or it was just like never gonna work.
Yep.
Or it was just maybe financially out of reach.
Could be. That could be as well.
Compounding factor.
It is expensive. Those bricks back in the day. I remember my dad's like flip phone brick AT&T.
Yeah.
I think it was like 1995 Olympic model. It was fun.
Let me clarify. I'm not talking about we're not talking about the first iteration of mobile.
Okay.
I'm talking pivot to mobile. I'm talking about when the iPhone came out, because it changed completely. Phones were one thing at one point, and then the iPhone came out, and then the entire and it's not like they pioneered it, but simply the fact that the market suddenly went, oh, there's a different thing. It's a smartphone.
Yeah, absolutely.
That terminology entered the market, and from then on, the shift to mobile was slow until we started seeing apps become more and more of a thing.
You can appreciate this, Mac.
Oh gosh,
I just found it the other day. It still works.
I have one too.
It's awesome.
It's incredible.
I'm sure like half
retro
the people,
using it. I'm like,
I'm sure half the people who see this are not gonna know what we just pulled out. They're gonna.
Oh, good.
I hope someone is like, is that a Microsoft Zune?
My new phone.
That's a Microsoft Zune, right? That's a Nokia cell phone, right? Yeah.
The trend is now going smaller, guys. Just kidding.
Yeah, but
cool. Well,
the next shift. All I was gonna say is the next shift is into VR.
Yep.
Like I've seen people who are younger than me able to spend a lot more time in VR without getting motion sickness than I ever did.
Yeah,
older than me are suffering more from motion sickness just from the just the immersive aspect plus the latency, like slight latency.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're all compounding factors, which I think is the next shift.
And I think everyone has a fear of the change, right? We all like, oh, we love change. No, you don't. We all hate it. But the thing that I think gets me excited about the VR future is I was reading an article actually this morning on NPR about therapy and how therapy is becoming more prevalent and more accessible to people with social anxieties, because they now can sit in a VR space and talk to a therapist. And so that's the type of it. I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I like it all.
No,
but when I hear those case studies, I'm like, that's a really good use for it. So,
how is that different than sitting and having a Zoom call from your home with a therapist?
To them, they feel like they're actually present in a room versus this one flat, because you can look around and see things. And so I thought the same thing as I was reading the article.
Yeah.
Maybe we can post a link to it.
Going to the metaverse discussion, the whole metaverse concept is a lot about engaging with brands how you feel you want to be seen. And that's it. So the metaverse like a digital avatar gives you another option to change like how you are perceived. Not even how you feel about yourself. We're not even talking about gender swap. Let's be honest. I play video games where I've definitely made a female character. And to be transparent about it, it's because a lot of guys on the internet are a lot nicer to female characters.
Oh my gosh, I'm having so many Black Mirror moments right now.
Yeah. Not for catfishing at all, but just for not get like made fun of for being bad at the game.
I mean, Nintendo let you do that when it was just you versus the game. So absolutely.
So, but see, even in that silly example, like there are more serious examples, but that silly example right there is simply me wanting to be perceived different by my fellow people. That's all it is. And so that's what we're talking about in the metaverse, is just the ability to be represented and seen for how you feel you want to be. That's kind of the beauty of it. It lets people open up a little bit more.
Well, we're curious to see where it goes and where it's headed. And if you hear anything else from us, Mac, like we're always happy to hop on and have a conversation during happy hour.
Fireside chat.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mac, for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy out there, and we wish you all the best. If you want to get a hold of Mac, we can put some of his info in the link below.
Absolutely.
And yeah, any last thoughts for happy hour?
No, I'm ready to drink. Are you ready?
Can we do it in reality and not the meta space, please? Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us.